Hey, it's Grady at Twin Creek Audio, back in the studio today to explain why I think analog mixing is easier. Now, I don't mean easier in the sense that it's easier overall to mix with an analog console or with a lot of analog outboard gear. What I mean is it's easier to get a good sound faster. What's not easy about it is learning all the ins and outs of how the analog hardware works, how to connect everything, and if you're using a console, learning your console, learning the patch bay, understanding how to connect everything so that you can set up different signal chains for things quickly and efficiently. But in my opinion, it's worth it because the sound you can get from using a lot of analog gear in your mixing process or even your recording process, it makes a huge difference in the sound. I've read a few things on the internet and seen some discussions, and it does seem like the main difference is the saturation that happens when you're passing signals through analog equipment. And they try to emulate that saturation in plugins. But if you really think about it, you have to have a lot of plugins to emulate the different analog stages that your signal is going to be passing through if you're mixing through a console and outboard gear. Then you need like 4 or 5 different saturation plugins on either side of processing plugins, or if the plugin saturation is built into the thing or whatever. And really it's just too confusing, and I find it's easier and the workflow is faster for me to use my analog console and my analog gear. There's also less choices to confuse me. I don't have just, I have hundreds of plugins, maybe thousands of them that I've tried. Some of them are still on there, but I bet there's just a handful that I actually use, and even that's a lot of choices. With my outboard gear, I've learned every one of these pieces of outboard gear and used it in a lot of different ways on different types of material, so I know each of these hardware pieces a lot better than I know really any given plugin except for a handful that I use all the time. So to show you a little bit about what I'm talking about, I'm going to do an analog mix here in the video today. This is a song that I've mixed on the channel before using the Soundtracs Topaz console. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one and in the video description. But today I'm going to mix the song Feline Friend from the Completist Songs for Cats album on the Soundcraft Sapphire console with analog only outboard gear. The simplicity I'm talking about in analog mixing is that the console and the outboard equipment and analog equipment you're using add something to the sound. They give it a larger than life euphonic sound. It sounds like a record, if you know what I'm saying. In this case, I'm doing a relatively simple mix. This song has kind of a mellow feel, acoustic guitar, a little bit of electric guitar and organ, some acoustic drums. These are all the original tracks. I call them tracks, or not stems, unless they're like a combination of things that are printed to a stereo stem. I guess you could describe a stem that way, but these are the original tracks. Kick, snare, toms, overheads, room mic, bass guitar, stereo acoustic guitars that I have panned too wide right now. We're fixing that right now. We'll see if we can balance that out in the mix a little better. Electric guitar, got organ here. This is a stereo. You could maybe call this a stem, but it's really just a track. It's a stereo track, left and right organ. And down here I've got some parallel compression on the drums, courtesy of the ART dual limiter. I've got 2 vocal tracks down here. This is the main lead vocal, and this is a double track that also picks up some of the lead vocal lines at times. You'll hear that during the mix. This is a relatively simple mix. I have the parallel compression going on with the ART dual limiter, and then I have a Urei LA-10 compressor on the bass guitar track. No compression on the acoustic guitar, nothing on the stereo organ. The vocals, I do have each of those vocals running through each side of the ART TCS twin compressor system, and you'll see the settings and all that in the screenshot. Our parallel compression is here. This is a reverb return track, and in this case I'm using a very inexpensive outboard reverb unit. It's an Alto A verb 2, and it actually sounds very good. I'm using the chorus reverb knob, and I just turned the variation knob. I'll put a picture of the thing up here for you, but that's what this is, and I have that a little bit on the organ and on the lead vocal and on one side of the acoustic guitar, but not the other. So let's hear this analog mix that we have so far.
Well, it rained all day. I slipped in the mud and the bullies, they just pushed me down. But I'm so happy with my feline friend. Well, I failed the test.
So the parallel compression adds a lot to the drums in this case. Let me solo up the parallel compressed drums so you can hear what those, it's just kick, snare, and toms I have going to the ART dual limiter for the parallel compression. And here is what that sounds like. So the parallel compression sounds really cool. Now here's what the mix sounds like without the parallel compression on the drums.
Slipped in the mud and the bullies, they just pushed me down. But I'm so happy with my feline friend. Well, I failed the test. I tore my shirt and my latest crush just brings me down. But I'm so happy with my feline friend.
So parallel compression adds a lot to that. Now that chorus and reverb on the vocal is also adding a lot to the vocals and the acoustic guitar. Let's hear that by itself.
All day I slipped in the mud and the bullies. When I failed the test, I tore my shirt and my latest crush just brings me down. But I'm so happy with.
Now the bass guitar, this is the only other processing I'm really doing in this analog mix. That's why it's so easy, I guess. I don't know. Let's hear the bass guitar with the Urei LA-10 compressor. Really, a lot of the sound I'm getting in this mix is just the sound of the analog console. I'm sending each of these tracks from the computer, DAW, out through this analog console. I am doing a little bit of EQ. If you're interested in a lot of the details on some of my EQ, I've done a lot of mixing videos where I do a lot more detail on the EQ. But in this mix, we'll say we're doing some analog EQ. We're using just the parallel compression on kick, snare, and toms, the Urei LA-10 on bass guitar, and the ART twin compressor system on the two vocal tracks. And then of course the little bit of reverb. So with some inexpensive outboard gear, only really, let's see, what's that? The ART, the dual limiter, and the TCS, and the Urei LA-10, and the Alto A verb 2. Those are the only things I've used on this mix other than the analog console. So all of the color and the sounds that you're hearing in this mix are coming from this analog gear. Everything in here is the original tracks as they were recorded. There is no processing in the box. So let's hear this entire mix of this really awesome, kind of cute song, Feline Friend, from the Completest Songs for Cats, because analog mixing is easy.
Well, it rained all day. I slipped in the mud and the bullies, they just pushed me shirt, and my latest crush just brings me down. But I'm so happy with my feline friend. The clouds keep rolling by, this big old world keeps spinning, just like it's done for all this time. And I'm just happy with my feline friend. I'm just happy with my feline friend. I'm just happy with my feline friend.
So I'm not saying that I don't like plugins or digital audio workstation software. I love the editing features, and there are tons and tons of great plugins. I enjoy a lot of those plugins and the sounds and things like that. It's just the way that I work. I find that I can get a really good sounding, big, professional mix that sounds like a record a lot faster and easier with my analog mixing console and my analog outboard gear. Make sure to check out the link to the other mixing video I did of this song a while back using a different console and some different outboard gear. Also check the links in the video description for links to help support this channel, as well as liking this video and subscribing to the Twin Creek Audio YouTube channel. I really appreciate all of you watching. I hope that you'll all have an excellent day, night, evening, weekend, weekday, hour, minute, second, nanosecond. Whatever it is you're having, have a good one. Thanks so much for watching.